one of our biggest complex challenges was the two-way integration with housing management systems. So what happened is Raven has a legacy housing management system, one of the housing management systems that perhaps some of you already have. And what we didn't want to do, and what Raven doesn't want to do, and there were a certain number of principles that were very key for Raven, and I'll let Martin talk a little bit more about them. But the principles were, we don't want double keying, for example, and a few other things. So we had to break down the rollout of iProperty Cloud into multiple phases. So rather than one big bang, switch off the legacy housing management system and switch on iProperty Cloud, which comes with a lot of risk. And of course, it means you don't have to do integration, but also comes with a lot of risk and a lot of training and business readiness that needs to go into it. We broke this down into multiple releases. So the release 1, as we mentioned, was just everything, well, not just, but it was everything CRM and housing management. But we still needed to integrate with the back-end legacy housing system so that we can push some information back to it, such as things like, for example, rent settings. We didn't roll out rent settings yet in iProperty Cloud, so we pushed that back to the legacy system for rents and a few other things. But what that has proven to be is it's a fairly complex thing, because obviously legacy systems, when it comes to integration with them, it's not the easiest thing to integrate with. But after, I think we finally managed to, after a few weeks, we managed to design a very robust integration, which what we went live with. And by the way, this has been live since May last year, so it's been ongoing integration. But the beauty of this is you're minimizing your risk, you're doing it in chunks, and then by the time we go live at the end of the program, we can switch off the legacy system when it is the right time. So it reduces your risk, it accelerates the delivery of the functionality and the benefits. So rather than a year and a half rollout, you can do 6 months or 7 months, and then you can break down the remaining releases. And Martin, the challenges that you put forward to us that we can't do as part of...
This is probably week 1, so you've got a new partner in the room, you're saying, right, this is what we're not going to allow to happen. So it was one of those conversations, but really important for us. We knew we couldn't do the big bang type change. It was too big for us, I think, and capacity of the organisation, risk, all of those things. So we did want to set out some releases, and so we set out a roadmap, different modules, and say the first release was around contact centre and all of housing tenancy management. But that did mean there was a lot left in the legacy system, and we were now splitting the business. And one of the biggest sort of fears up front was, how do we, as very busy staff, manage 2 systems? And so my sort of absolute guarantee to them was, you will never do double keying. You'll never have to double entry. You'll never have to enter it in one system and another. We'll find a way just to do that in a single system. And the other one was that we didn't really, change is difficult for anybody, but we didn't want to see a drop in performance across anywhere. We wanted to do this in a way that maintained a level of performance, so therefore we wanted to protect staff from taking on too much. Now, capacity for change is difficult across any organisation, so I'm not going to say staff haven't been strained across every area that we've had to implement in. That would be wrong. However, we have maintained those principles. Now, the complexity of some of that was, so we create a tenancy in iProperty Cloud. To actually replicate that back into our legacy system, you'd have to go through the same sort of scenario as if you were manually creating that account in that legacy system. So we said to Mohammed, there you go, there's the 5 stages of a letting process. Can you replicate that in an integration? We left them in a darkened room, came back, and we got that solution. And since then, we do have that 2-way integration. So we've got information literally moving between systems. People just enter data once, they see it in both systems within hours, sometimes overnight, depending on the type of interaction it is, but most of it's instant. That's a massive thing for reporting as you're between 2 systems. I say for staff actually at the end, at the front end. And I think the only guys that are actually having to use 2 systems or have visibility is the contact centre, where they've still got an interest in both areas. But we managed to sort of surround teams and say, well, you will be exclusively in this. The other benefit, which again was an 11th hour change to part of that, was we did learn that there were some teams that were still going to work on the old system, the legacy system, but needed those actions coming from the contact centre. We were able to just give them the real basic training in iProperty Cloud, and they will have a task tray, so they can still receive tasks from the new system, but carry out the work in the old system. So really worked well, but so important to us as we go through that journey.
And I think there's a lot of technical stuff that we can talk about, and I don't want to bore everyone in the room, but I'll give you two examples of part of these complexities to achieve those business challenges that were put against us. One of the challenges, of course, was the old closed cases. So you had hundreds of thousands of cases that go back for 11 years. Do you really want to bring all of this into your new shiny product, your iProperty Cloud on top of Dynamics? Or do you want to just get maybe the last 2 years, last 3 years into iProperty Cloud and lose that legacy, that kind of historical information? There are pros and cons for each side, right? You want the historical information because you want to know everything about your customer, but you don't want the historical information because you're going to fill in your kind of system from day one, and you're going to impact, you're going to have a lot of data that you might or might not see once in a year. So our solution to this is we actually built what we call a virtual entity in iProperty Cloud, which can go and look at legacy cases. So we put all the legacy cases in an Azure SQL database. We read from a PCF control that we created. And again, for those who don't know Microsoft Dynamics, it's a custom control that we built inside iProperty Cloud that goes into a completely different database, nothing to do with Dynamics, and reads all the legacy cases and activities that go back for 11 years plus. So you still see everything inside iProperty Cloud, but you don't migrate all the data. So it's the best of both worlds, really. You don't have to do a data migration of million plus records, which you might or might not ever need to open, but at the same time, you still have them within the system. And we can talk more about the technical side. If anyone is interested, more than happy to, of course, go deep into the technical side of how we did this. Another challenge, as Martin mentioned, is that the legacy system was an on-premise system. Of course, it sits inside the domain and the infrastructure within Raven's kind of infrastructure, and we have iProperty Cloud sitting in Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform in the cloud. So we managed to do that integration using flows, a Microsoft Flow or Power Automate or whatever Microsoft likes to call it today, because they keep on changing names every week. You might have to cut this off the video. So using Microsoft Flow, we managed to do the two-way integration using something called on-premise data gateway, which allows us to dip securely inside Raven's architecture, get to the web services and the databases that they have on-premise, and bring this data back into Dynamics. And we did it both ways. So we can get data out of the legacy system, or we can push data into the legacy system using Microsoft Flow on-premise gateway, and with the setup that we get with it to create a client on the infrastructure, and that works perfectly and works securely. Again, not without challenges, though I'm not trying to underestimate the challenge. It was very challenging at the beginning, but we managed to do it, and we managed to get the information in and out of the legacy system. The third challenge that we had, which is around to push a tenancy into this legacy system to do other stuff that we're not going to roll out as part of phase one, we had to go through 5 stages of promoting from the moment of creating an ad all the way to setting up the tenancy. We had to do that via the API of the legacy system. So we literally had to do this behind the scenes from the back end without showing the user anything. The user is just creating an iProperty Cloud tenancy, and within 15 seconds, 20 seconds, the flow fires and creates that, but creates all the 5 stages, promotes them automatically all the way until it gets to the creation of the tenancy and everything else around rent that comes afterwards. Again, it's a fairly complex process. A lot of our team lost their hair on the way, but we managed to do it, and it's, as I said, it's live since May last year.